Hi folks. So as you can see, our current assignment is a rhetorical analysis of Kickstarter, the creative funding platform. And your analysis will be 6 paragraphs in length, approximately 3 pages, which means that we're going to give attention to 6 different rhetorical concerns. And as you've looked over the Kickstarter project that I'm going to discuss in this video and in additional videos, you can see that this platform is much more rhetorically sophisticated than the first online articles that we looked at. There's a lot more going on. I'm not necessarily suggesting that they're trying to accomplish something more ambitious, but they're more rhetorically sophisticated. So we have a number of questions here, and I'm going to focus on a limited set of questions. So 6 paragraphs, 6 questions. So certainly we're going to try to define the major purpose of the text and also define the primary audience. And I also wanted you to explore the relationship of the author to the audience, and more specifically answer the question, does he or she maintain a position of distance and authority or seek to come close to the readers? And then finally, in addition to points 1, 2, and 5, I asked you to choose 3 additional, or I'm asking you to choose 3 additional points from the list below, that area number 6, which is kind of a grab bag of rhetorical concerns. And in these lectures here, I'm going to discuss point number 1, complexity of discussion, and more specifically how the discussion is organized. And then I also want to look at the Kickstarter project's use of images. And since there are images that are still, there are pictures and moving images, also videos, I'm going to look at those separately because I think they accomplish different things. All right, so that's what we're looking at. Questions 1, 2, and 5, and then we're going to look at organization and then both the video and the still images. So let's look at question number 6, or pardon me, question number 1, and try to define the major purpose of the text. And clearly, as I noted in previous discussions, we're using the term text loosely here. This is kind of it's a text or a composition. It's a thing that we are analyzing. And in this case, it is a funding platform, right? So I want to look at the sketch chair furniture designed by you. I think clearly the purpose of any Kickstarter project, the sketch chair included, is to simply gather backers, gather pledges for a specific project, right? So if we look at the Kickstarter page, and I believe I provided you with some of these informational links, these contexts, we know that Kickstarter is a funding platform for creative projects, everything from films, games, and music to art, design, and technology. Kickstarter is full of ambitious, innovative, and imaginative projects, a little bit of hyperbole here, right, that are brought to life through the direct support of others. So here we have a direct quote, which is evidence for that assertion that Kickstarter is a funding platform where people can get pledges for their creative projects. So it's fairly apparent that what this is designed for, and that's not a terribly difficult assertion to prove. It's not difficult for us to discern what the purpose of the text is. Now, more specifically, the funders of Sketchchair want you to pledge their project. And as I was reading through this video, or pardon me, as I was listening to the video they have front and center on their homepage, I came across a moment where I thought they were speaking specifically to their purpose. And here it is. I think this is relevant.
So what we have now is a prototype. What we're looking for support for is to develop this prototype into a fully working open source system. As well as funding development, though, we would also like to take this opportunity to collaborate with anybody out there who would already love to get their hands on their own Sketchchair. So we'll send the application out to you and then work with you to refine your one-of-a-kind original.
So we see the process, the role of the designer and the user changing. We think that more and more the user will be contributing, will be enriching the products that they buy and customizing them. And that designers will be designing products with users through systems that they make. So the products people will be buying will be designed as a collaboration almost between the person buying the product and the designer that's designed the system.
So we think that we're hoping that Sketchshare could be an interesting step in this direction. So we're really hoping that there might be some people out there who might be willing to support us.
And we'd just love you to be part of this, love you to be part of designing your own things or co-designing your own things. And thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Okay, so we can see there where they're also speaking to additional purpose, and they talk about quite a number of things there, but what I gathered from that was that they wanted funding for development, but they also wanted to collaborate with people. They want people to design their own chairs, and they want to be a part of their process, and they kind of want to close that loop between manufacturing and consumer and the creative process. And so were I writing a paragraph on the purpose of the text, I would talk generally about the purpose of any Kickstarter project, right? To gather funding for a project. And then within that video, I found a more specific discussion of what they wanted to achieve relative to their specific project, right? So there's all kinds of evidence in there that answers this question here, what is the purpose of the text? Now, and notice what I did there is I didn't just dig in, before I move on to the next point, the primary audience, notice that I was looking everywhere, right? So I listened to the video to see if there was any discussion of the purpose. I read through the text. I had an understanding of the Kickstarter project. I am willing to gather evidence from wherever it may be within this project to prove that point. And you, listening to me, don't necessarily have a problem with me jumping to the video because those two creators there are discussing their purpose. Okay, so let's look at number 2, identify the primary audience. This is a little trickier. Oftentimes when students are starting out writing rhetorical analysis, if they can't quite figure out the primary audience, they default to the general public, right? Everything is accessible to the general public. Everyone in the world is the general public, right? And so if we're making an assertion that anyone and everyone, my dog, my aunt, my mother, my grandmother, is the primary audience for a given project, for a given text, it's almost as if everyone is the audience, but no one is the audience. That we don't have any. We'd have to reach the conclusion that there weren't any precise rhetorical strategies employed to reach a specific audience, and I don't know that that's the case. So I want to what am I trying to say here? I want you to avoid making a generalization that the general public is the primary audience for any given Kickstarter project. Now, having said that, or any text in general, but specifically a Kickstarter project. Now, having said that, clearly there are rhetorical strategies used in these projects so that the creators can engage as wide an audience as possible. And certainly there's going to be a large audience, given that David Pogue, the technology columnist for the New York Times, has written about Kickstarter, and you of course read that article in preparation for this assignment. But I do think that the platform itself, while it's welcoming, it's probably welcoming to a very niche group of people, and I think you're included in this group if in fact, since you're taking an online class, so you're familiar with online technologies. The assumption is that you're fairly web savvy. You're used to watching videos online, participating in discussions and chat and so on and so forth. And clearly, this particular platform, its primary audience is kind of Web 2.0 users, people who are web savvy, people who know how to navigate to the site and engage with these kind of new media materials here. So it's not the person that's going to IKEA to buy a chair, it's the person that's interested in the process of creating a chair and learning about that process via this platform we have here, via this content we have here. So actually a very niche audience in terms of primary audience. Now we can make other observations about the secondary audience, but we're not going to spend any time talking about the secondary audience right now. Let's look at question number 5, explore the relationship of the author to the audience, and more specifically Does he or she maintain a position of distance and authority, or seek to come close to the readers? Now, our answer to this question actually has much to do with how we respond to any of the smaller questions within question number 6. So we can say that these two gentlemen here who have put this Kickstarter project together try to come close to the readers or don't try to come close to the readers. It's a question of whether or not they fail to create that relationship or succeed in creating that relationship. And once we answer that question, the yes, they have succeeded, or no, they have not succeeded, then we need to identify at least one of the strategies through which they have succeeded, right? Because it's not just enough to make a judgment about whether or not they've been effective, but we want to know how they've been effective or where they failed in their efficacy, right? Now, in looking at this project, I happen to think they're effective in a number of ways, and one of them perhaps speaks to the overall organization of the Kickstarter project generally, but I think that these two gentlemen have made use of the platform, have made effective use of the platform. So I would say that they seek to come close to the reader, and I'm giving you something of a topic sentence here, right? If we were imagining the paragraph that would come out of these observations. I would say that they sought to come close to the reader, and they did it through the use of the various elements on the home page, including updates, backers, and comments. And if you look at the top here, you can see that little menu item there, and they made quite a use of that. And let's click on the updates here. All right, so as we go through here, it's something like a blog structure, and this is an example of them coming close to the reader by being in conversation, or being close to their potential clients, right? By being in conversation with those clients. So take note there that I'm emphasizing a strategy. I'm answering the question and emphasizing the strategy. These two gentlemen came close to the reader by being in conversation with their potential clients. And notice what they're doing here. We have updates. Here's what we've been up to for the past 6 months. Here's what we're going to be up to for the next 3 months, right? And so there's something of a discussion here. And I'll use the term discussion loosely because clearly, well, it is a discussion in that we have updates here, right? Pledge rewards delivered, sketch chair on tour, right? And then we have an area for comments here, so there's a discussion back and forth. And that discussion is a way to engage the reader. But also notice that we have these pictures here, and I think these pictures are marvelous ways of engaging the reader too. It includes the reader in the process. And even if I had yet to decide to pledge, even if I weren't a so-called Kickstarter backer, these pictures might engage me enough that I might click that button. I might decide to commit some money here because I would feel not just a voyeur, not just a viewer in the process, but engaged in this process here. So as we scroll down here, we can see this kind of generous conversation going on between Greg and Tiago of Diatom Studio and the people that are watching this project take shape. Okay? Let's go back up to the top here, and we can see other evidence of this discussion, right? Notice that there's a comment section. Well, this is for backers only. Yes, well, it's for backers only and also the creators. So let's look up here at the top here. Someone writes, Mark writes, did anyone get their $300 pledge share? The FedEx tracking number says it was delivered, but I did not receive anything. And then we have a note here from the creator. Hey guys, thanks for all your support. Please have a look at the update number 12 for info on how to restore your pledge to the project. It sounds to me like they're having some technical difficulties here. So I guess I could go either way with this, right? Perhaps the comments page is an example of an ineffective discussion, that they didn't come close to the reader, quote unquote, because they were having product difficulties here. But generally, I think that this back and forth between the creators and the clients, the creators and the people with the money, is an example of an effective way of engaging the reader. So as I'm answering that question, I'm coming to a conclusion. I'm making a claim about whether or not they came close to the reader. My answer is yes, they did come close to the reader. And then I'm going one step further, and I noted this in my comments on the first essay. We need to go one step further and identify the strategy. So if you're telling me the reader of your analysis, yes, they engage the reader, my next question to you is, because I want to know how to do it, right? You're also teaching me something. I want to know, how did they do it? How did they engage the reader? And we can make the argument here that they engage the reader through a kind of back and forth conversation through their updates in their comment section. And then we can go into this project here and quote selectively from those exchanges, and talk and quote selectively from the comments, quote selectively from the updates, and use those as evidence of that engagement with the reader. All right. So in the next video, I'm going to talk about organization generally. Okay.